Thank you everyone for joining us for today's Ask an Expert series. For everyone who is new to joining us, I want you to know that you have the opportunity to ask questions as the presentation is taking place. As well, once our expert has finished, you will have an open opportunity to ask questions afterwards. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, there is a little tab that says Q&A. If you select that, you'll have the option to type in your questions that will be answered live. So we'll go ahead and get started. Today we have with us Dr. Wendy Kraglin-Gauthier. Wendy is an educator, instructional designer, and researcher with over 25 years experience in K-12, post-secondary, and adult learning classrooms. Central to her work is achieving and facilitating sound teaching pedagogy, including ways universal design for learning principles and technologies can be used in face-to-face and online classrooms to promote collaborative, accessible learning for students of diverse ages, abilities, and backgrounds, all with a lens of social justice. A core faculty member with the Faculty of Education and its capstone coordinator, Wendy comes to this session with experience working in alternative education programs for at-risk youth and with post-secondary students who require academic supports. Please join me in welcoming today's expert, Dr. Wendy.
Hi folks, it is fantastic just to have you all here today. Thank you for taking about 30 minutes out of your day to learn a little bit about the process of learning online effectively. So I'm just going to share my screen here. There we go. So when I was asked to do a session, Deirdre and I talked about some of the things I could talk about, and we came up with the idea of how we can be successful in an online space. So we're going to talk about some of the key core things to consider as you're moving from a physical classroom to a digital space. And I'm hoping that you'll have lots of questions and some comments that you can put into the Q&A that we will address. And when we're looking at, learning online, and I put the air quotes around the new normal, I've been working in online digital spaces since the 1990s. So it's been interesting to see the slow shift between in that move from face-to-face to online. But certainly this spring, our whole world went sideways. So we've been really forced to stop and look and think about how we engage with each other in online spaces. So what my goal is here today is to really take a look at some of the strategies for teaching that you will see that your professors have put together, but we want to focus on the strategies for learning and the ways that we can help you re-energize and remotivate you for success. And hopefully today you'll be able to take away some key ideas. So the first thing that I want to talk about today is the importance of managing your space and managing your learning. Most of us are working from home, learning from home, and it's interesting. I had a colleague say, well, no, we're not working from home anymore. We're not studying from home. We're living and studying where we live, which I think is a little bit of a switch there. So one of the key things that we would recommend is that you can find a place that you can call your own within your space, whether you're doing a blend of online courses and face-to-face courses, regardless of when you are in a workspace. If you are in a space that you can dedicate for your own, you can put all your things together. You can put all your courses, you can put course materials in a pile. The benefit of having a dedicated workspace is that when you enter that space, you become immersed in that space. And it's not like you have to pick up and start your thinking again. So you're playing a little bit with your mind in that comfort zone of where you are located. You don't have to restart everything. You don't have to reshuffle all your papers in a pile the way you like it. And that strong internet access is really important. There's nothing more frustrating than watching that little wheel turn as you're waiting for the video to download, or you're waiting for the screen to refresh. So when you're thinking about that strong internet access and you're thinking about your workspaces, I'm not excluding public spaces as well. Now, I will caution you when you are using public Wi-Fi to make sure that you're using browser protections and pop-up protections, and you're very careful with the amount of information that you're sharing in your screens. Limiting distractions and interruptions at home and online. Right now, I'm actually working from my home office, but downstairs I have somebody installing a kitchen. So it's very, very difficult to focus when I have all this background noise. So when you're thinking about limiting the distractions and interruptions, thinking about where you can study and the blocks of time that you can study in. So for example, if you have children and they are at home, are you trying to study while they're running around, while you're homeschooling them, while your roommates are up and about? When you look at what the ebb and flow is in your learning space itself, can you carve out a time of where you're not being disrupted? And that actually goes in with the idea of minimizing the distractions that are on your screen as well. Most of us have a mobile device that sits next to them when they're trying to work. But if you have notifications and sounds constantly dinging and pulling you away from the screen that you have right here to another screen beside you, you're not actually being very efficient when you work. So when you're setting up that space and that time for learning, turn off your notifications, do a do not disturb. Of course, that doesn't preclude needing to be contacted if your children are at school and you may need to be. So when you're at home working, you will find as well that the distractions will pull you away. Is there laundry to do? Are there dishes to do? Is your roommate wanting to talk, to go for a walk? How are you navigating that space? How are you navigating that time? And, setting aside a schedule. I'm going to talk a little bit about scheduling in a minute. But what I also want you to think about is knowing how you learn best. Are you the type of person who needs music and sound, people, social interaction, or do you need a quiet space? And knowing which way you function better will help you set up that learning space. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to learn when the environment around you is not conducive. You might as well just not and choose a different time. And also think about what time of the day. There's a lot of research on routine and scheduling and people's effectiveness throughout different times of the day. Knowing if you're a morning person and if you focus in the morning, put your most difficult tasks in the morning. It's okay to be a night owl as long as you're still getting enough sleep as well. And as long as you're also meeting those deadlines. When you're picking your times of day to study, you're also looking at what your other responsibilities are. So if you have something that's going to require a lot of focus, a lot of concentration, you might need to book off your schedule for a little bit of a longer time. Maybe it's a shorter task. Maybe it doesn't require as much thought. Maybe it's just, collecting information for an assignment. That could be something that could be done in a quick burst of energy. Also, part of knowing how you learn best is understanding how you absorb and retain information. When we move to an online space, oftentimes we have all of this stuff on a screen. But you may be a person who absorbs more information visually, and you think, oh, well, you know, I'll just watch a YouTube video that the professor has posted, or I'll watch something. But if you're actually listening, not watching. So check to see if there's a transcript that you can read, that you can highlight. If you have access to a printer and you need to print, do that and then grab your highlighter. Most of our software packages now will allow you to highlight on the screen as well. So anything that has a PDF, as you're reading, you can actually highlight what you're reading. So that will help you as a visual learner. If you are a learner who absorbs information more readily by listening, perhaps that's where you are, you know, sitting and you're listening to those videos. Maybe you're turning on the text-to-speech feature in some of the software packages themselves. Our Office 365 suite does have a speech-to-text feature. The Adobe PDF Reader does have a speech-to-text, a text-to-speech reader as well. The voices aren't great, but sometimes it is a little better than trying to absorb the words on the page by just reading it. So I'm sure that there'll be questions on that as we come through. Now, I just mentioned a couple of different pieces of potential software. One of the key things to do is also to take the time to learn how to navigate the technology. Within the Yorkville system, we use Office 365 as a standards process for our giving all students access to an email, to slide deck presentations, to spreadsheets, to word processing documents. But there are also some key things that will make your life a lot more efficient within 365. For example, in the email itself. If you are not in the habit of checking your Yorkville email, which you probably should be, but if it's just another email account, one of the things that you can do is actually forward your 365 email to a personal email address. And you would do that within the settings of your email, and you just search forwarding, and you can put in a web address. What I recommend though is not to delete from your Yorkville 365 account in case you need to go back to something. There's also the value of your Office 365 OneDrive. That is a storage space that you can use that stores information in a cloud. One of the things you do not want to do is rely solely on your one device to store your information. Because if you happen to spill your coffee on your laptop and it fries, or if you work predominantly from your mobile device and you have saved information on your phone and you end up putting it into the washing machine, you want to make sure that you do have a backup of all of your assignments. And a backup of your work. So that OneDrive is a central location that you can access as long as you know your 365 login and password. You can access that from any device and in any location as well. One of the neat things about OneDrive as well is that it offers a place for you to store your course information. So in Moodle, you have the option of downloading your readings. And you know that Moodle closes after a certain length of time. I believe it's 30 days after the class ends, your Moodle shuts down. Well, you may want to access some of the readings, some of the links that your professor has provided. OneDrive is a place to store that for the entire length of your degree program. Teams is another thing that you can use in Office 365. Teams is a way to set up group conversations, which is fantastic in your courses that have group work. And it will allow you to do recordings because you can actually have an MS Teams session. Students also have access to Zoom, so it's another place, again, to store those recordings. So take some time to explore the software that's been given to you as tools for you. Now, I mentioned Zoom and Teams. some of the options that you have for a live classroom are Zoom, and you'll find that a lot of your professors will use Zoom. You'll find Zoom is handy for group meetings as well, because you can actually share a document live. A lot of us will use a Google Drive, and sometimes that's challenging when folks don't want to use their personal email addresses when they're working with students, other classmates, with your professors. So if you're using Zoom, you can actually share a screen, just like what I'm doing now. I could actually be sharing a Word document, and we could have my group. Let's say I'm doing a marketing group. We could be sharing screens. We could be sharing the web searches. We can have those conversations. So we can actually collaborate within a live real-time event as well. Now, Moodle has a lot of key components that will help you stay organized. When you're thinking about those Moodle files, look to see where you can actually download your readings so you can read them when you're perhaps traveling. Hopefully we'll be traveling on public transit in the next few months. And also think about how you're uploading your assignments as well. Moodle is key for collaboration. A lot of your professors are going to be using collaboration as the conversations that would normally happen in that live classroom. We've now moved those to discussion forums. And when you're thinking about that collaboration, thinking about how you're navigating that space, making sure that when you're in Moodle, you have the settings turned on so that it's noticing what is unread. So you want to make sure that it's tracking what you've read and where you're going. Within Moodle as well, you have the assignment feature for submissions, but you also have that calendar. And a calendar is one of the things that I want to talk about a little bit when we're talking about when you're navigating the, just trying to move my screen here. There we go. When you're trying to talk about being engaged in your learning. But first, let's take a little bit of a roll back about being an active participant. So right now, all of us are in a digital space, a digital classroom. So it becomes very difficult to feel like we're part of a connection with each other. What it takes is more effort. You know, yes, the internet has always been told to be that it was a way to make our lives more efficient and more productive. Well, actually, working on the internet will take a little more time. And it takes a little more effort to be an active participant in your own reading, in your own learning itself. So the recommendations, if there's an assigned material, read it. And what your professor is looking for is how you are applying those readings into your discussion forum questions, into your assignments themselves. And you're actually physically making a connection between the content of those readings through your online discussions. So for example, when you're doing a discussion forum itself, you're saying, well, this makes me think of what author so-and-so said in this reading. So what you're doing is that you're signaling that you've made that connection to the readings, you've connected it to the topic at hand, and you're also signaling to your audience that they could also make connections between what's happening and the readings themselves. Now, I've done a lot of work in teaching and learning in online spaces, and also with answering and asking questions. Professors are waiting for you to ask for help. They want to help you. That's what they're here for. So in the Moodle discussion forum themselves, if there's ask questions about the course, feel free, be brave and ask that question, because guaranteed someone else in that space has the same question, but they're not comfortable asking. You know, really look at the feedback that you're given, whether those be the online rubrics or whether it be in the assignment posting themselves. How are you using it to improve your next process? Manage your time, manage your time, manage your time. Turn on, as I mentioned, turn off the notifications, but also schedule your online class time and your learning time. One of the rules of thumbs is that for every hour that you would spend in a physical face-to-face class or an online class, it also equates to about 2 hours of learning time. So the readings, the connections, the postings, and things like that. So how do you navigate all of that? I recommend a schedule, setting a list, making a timer, and setting the goals. Now, depending on how you work, you may want to decide to do the easy assignments first, but oftentimes we underestimate the difficult assignments and the time that they take. So one suggestion is to try and get the hard stuff out of the way first. Do something every day. Log into your course space every day. Check to see what people have posted. Check to make sure that you know what the deadlines are as you are moving through as well. I feel like I'm talking really, really fast here, but I want to make sure that there's time at the end for comments and questions. Healthy habits when we're sitting in online spaces are so important. We haven't been moving enough since March. We have been stuck in front of screens, stuck in front of a couch, maybe stuck in front of a book. What you really need to do is to really think about the routines that you're making and keeping that encourage you to stay healthy. Getting enough sleep. Sticking to a regular sleep pattern instead of cramming for those all-nighters. As I mentioned before, you might be a morning person or you might be an evening or night person. As long as you have a balance between sufficient sleep. Walking away from your screen. Some of our devices now have reminders to get us to stop and look up and to move around. Take advantage of those. People say, oh, but I'm in the zone, I'm focused. It's actually interesting that if we spend too long on a task, we actually become less focused on it. So, shorter bursts are better than the long haul. Staying hydrated. We're so focused, we're so intent. Non-caffeinated beverages. So, good old water. Because your brain gets tired when you're thinking. And you need to have those water, and you need to have the healthy food options. And asking for help. There are a ton of resources available for you. And if you look at the Yorkville Learning Success Center, you will note that there is lots and lots of tools. I just have a screenshot here of some of the areas to look at. And I know Shauna will also talk a wee bit about the mental health and counseling services that we have. We also have academic tools and supports for you to use. If you're finding you're spending too long, perhaps looking for articles in the Yorkville Library, you spend hours and you can't find anything, that's where you need to stop and say, I need some support. I need to go to the library tools section. I need to ask a librarian for support. And when you're in the library, if you ever get that this is not available or you have to pay for access, what I want you to do is to actually check to see if you are logged in. At the top right-hand side of your screen, there's a little button. And if you're not logged in, you actually don't get all access to everything as a Yorkville student. So there's some front-facing stuff and there's some stuff behind the password. So that might be a way to get access to all of those. Find a study buddy. Being accountable to yourself is really difficult, but if you have a study buddy and you can be accountable to each other and, to support each other with due dates and being the champion, keeping you on task, that is key to success when you're going through your academics. And physical distancing does not mean social distancing. Stay connected. So many of us I called it turtle. We kind of put our heads under the covers and, we let the world go by. You need to really acknowledge just how challenging our world is right now, how stressful our world is right now. and to be okay with admitting that you're worried, with admitting that you're stressed and you're unsure, you're not quite comfortable with that online experience. Reach out and ask for help, because it is there that help is there for. You have to be kind to yourself. You have to give yourself credit for doing this in an online space, and you might not be an online learner, but this is the way it is for now. So how can you make it the best that you can make it? So that is just some brief ideas of what there is to talk about. And I'm hoping to open things up now to have a conversation. So if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wendy. I know that a common question we've been getting from students, especially those who are more accustomed to being on campus, is what are some of the benefits of online learning?
Oh, absolutely. There are a lot of benefits to online learning. First of all, one of the benefits that that I see is the flexibility of learning where you are. So we spend a lot of time commuting to classrooms, to walking to and fro, to actually getting to that space. So you're gaining a little bit of time there. But the benefits of learning as well go beyond that time space. It also goes to the learner who is quiet, the learner who is shy and not comfortable with raising their hand in a classroom. It also, what it does is it gives a safe space to explore the readings, maybe to think about it, the questions in the DQs a little more before you make a response. So it's a little more comforting for a learner whose language whose spoken English may not be as strong as others in their class. That is one of the benefits as well in an online space, is that it does give a chance to think, to process information, because you post when you're ready within those time zones. Now, one of the things one of the things that I would also say is that it allows me, when possible, to learn my best learning when. I'm an early morning person. I'm useless in the afternoon. So I schedule all of my hard stuff in the morning. So hopefully that answered a few things.
Yes, because there were questions here asking about how to analyze, or I guess basically figure out your learning style. Yeah. So you spoke to that in terms of figuring out what works best for you. And you did mention that as well during your presentation, seeing if music is helpful or morning versus evening. All of these factors are things that are individualized. So it's best to assess how you feel and what allows you to be most productive.
Yeah. And there's also some little online quizzes. If you do a learning style quiz search in Google, you can find some very simple learning styles, and it'll give you an indication of whether you prefer to intake information by visual. But you know what? You know yourself in your gut, whether, and in your head and in your heart, the best way that you absorb information, because it's what works for you. It's what makes you comfortable.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Wendy. I'm sorry we won't have time to get to a few of the other questions, but we do really appreciate this presentation that you've shared, and I hope that there were some helpful tips that everyone can take away as we're continuing this online process for a little while longer, at least.
Yeah.
And everyone, next week, we are back here again, of course, same time, same place. And we will have Dr. Erica Franken speaking on building emotional resilience in difficult conversations. So I want to thank all of you for joining us this week, and we hope to see you again next week. Take care.